And the good thing is we happen to be living right next to Silicon Valley.
I know, that's the part that's so confusing, because I don't know if anyone see it like a Muni. When you go down into Muni, they have what train is coming next, and the most, it looks like Pac-Man.
Yeah, it's graphics from, I don't know, 25 years ago.
And I'm like, you've got to be kidding. Silicon Valley is right there. We're right here. Can we not find somebody that can make this more streamlined and more,
I am very confident that there are people who would come work for the city and could make the city government much more efficient. And the Muni is a great example. I mean, it's amazing. You really think this does look like something from Romania in 1989 or something.
And it doesn't have to be that way. And, you
No.
know, I use Muni all the time. And you know, at first I was saying, I'm going to go green, go green. Everybody wants to go green. I said, fine, I'll try it. But the third time I was late for work, and you know, it was just a hassle to really get they said that they were going to be there in 10 minutes, and 20 minutes later, I'm still waiting for the J.
Right.
You know, if you make it efficient, and if you make everything streamlined, people are going to get out of their cars and use public transportation, donate more money towards the city, you know, instead of raising the fast passes and lowering the service.
I mean, and that's especially a problem in a lot of my district. There are a lot of low-income people in District 6, and a lot of people don't have cars. And so Muni is their only option. And when the bus takes an hour to show up, or the bus, there are 3 buses in a row, after waiting an hour, those are really affecting the people who don't have any other options. They can't drive. They don't have cars. Muni is their only source of transportation. And so when we cut Muni, it's a tax very heavily on the people who are most vulnerable, who need it the most.
Well, let's talk about the lower income areas, and more particularly about crime and public safety. What's your stand on that, and what ideas do you have?
Well, that's a very important part of District 6. A very important platform of mine is public safety. And our streets should be clean, and our streets should be safe. And right now they are not. In parts of San Francisco, in parts of District 6, there are shootings. A woman was just shot, a tourist was just shot about a month ago right near Union Square, shot and killed.
Wow.
And she was just caught in crossfire. And that's just one person in there, but that is a symptom of the problem. The streets are not clean and they're not safe. And if you look at the people who are most victimized by that, it is, again, the lower income people who have no choice but to live in those neighborhoods, say in the Tenderloin. And they want to improve the Tenderloin. They want it to be a better place. They want it to be a clean and safe place.
Now, this is funny, because living in the Tenderloin, I haven't lived there, but when you live in there, you kind of figure what you see when you drive through all the time is a lot of people hanging out, you know, drinking, smoking, whatever. But there's actually a different demographic that's in the Tenderloin. You want to talk about that a little bit?
Sure. I mean, the Tenderloin is a very diverse place. There are a lot of children in the Tenderloin. The Tenderloin is, in many ways, a gateway to the city for immigrants who come to the city from Central America and from Southeast Asia. And it's very important, and these children end up having to live and are raised in a neighborhood where there are needles on the ground, where there are drug deals, where there are people drinking on the street. That's no way for kids to grow up, and I don't think it's okay. I don't think it's acceptable. The children shouldn't be forced to live in that neighborhood just because they're poor.
Okay.
Just because their parents are poor. I think that's completely unacceptable and unfair.
Why are we not allowed to clean up the streets, and people who are hanging out and not, you know, just, I mean, I understand we have a new police chief right now.
Yes.
So what is your view of him and what he's doing now? Because it's changing.
It has, and I think that people in the Tenderloin and in other high crime areas, most people I talk to agree that the new chief has made a difference. And he's good, and I support the new chief. I think he's been a terrific hire. I think he has made the city a much better place. He has, in some ways, gone through and said it's not acceptable to have people dealing drugs openly on the street. That's not part of the city, and that's not part of the city I want to live in. And he's changed, he's reprioritized that kind of crime, and it has made a difference. Now, it's not going to change right away. I mean, but I do think that the Tenderloin, that 99% of the problems are caused by 1% of the population. Most people there are not causing problems. They may be low income, but that certainly doesn't make them criminal.
Right.
They're trying to get by. They're trying to look for a new job. They're trying to work.
So then it's the one bad apple kind of thing.
Right.
And you see this in the projects a lot. I come from a police background. I have a lot of people in my family, and they go, when they're policing the projects and that, it's a couple bad apples that are ruining it for everybody else who wants to be there and raise their family and really try to, work the way up in that. And how do you, why have we let that go for so long? Why has it been so difficult to police that?
Well, we could go back and point fingers and argue about the cause of all this. I think looking forward, the better strategy is what can we do going forward. And going forward, I think we can go after the very few bad apples, and it's not many. Mm-hmm. It's very much not many, and most people are not criminals, mm-hmm. and you don't want to arrest most people. But there are a few people who are dealing drugs on the street.
Right.
That causes all kinds of damage, and people openly, when you have a culture of open drug dealing on the streets of San Francisco, I think that's terrible, and it's especially worse when you think of those kids who have no choice but to grow up in that environment and grow up around that environment. That's not healthy, and that's not the way that I want. I don't think that's best for them. I don't think it's best for the city. Mm-hmm.
Now, how do you deal with people that may come up to you and say, "You don't look like someone who lives in the Tenderloin. How are you going to speak to those people?"
Well, and that's part of the district is very diverse, and I that's just the nature of politics in San Francisco. I'm approachable. I'm there all the time. When you campaign, you're always around. I know people in every neighborhood in the district and all over the city, and so you just have to have an open door. You have to be able to talk to people, mm-hmm. And people respect someone who's going to look for solutions.
Very good. You wanted to speak about the measures that are coming up, and most particularly pension reform.
Right.
That was very surprising. Why don't you share a little bit about that with us?
Well, that's a very controversial measure. Mm-hmm. It's incredibly controversial. But the fact is that our city employees, right now, they contribute part of their salary into their pension. Mm-hmm. But when their contributions don't add up to the amount of the pensions that are paid out every year, we, the taxpayers, are liable. We are on the hook for that additional money. And back when the stock market was booming several years ago, when these deals were signed, then it wasn't a problem because the money that they were contributing was growing in the stock market, and there was plenty of money left over. Mm-hmm. Now that the stock market is obviously not growing, no. As we all know, this is a problem. And so the problem is the city is on the hook for these pension benefits, and the city is contributing hundreds of millions of dollars a year. And you look at another root cause of our budget problem, hundreds of millions of dollars we're spending. And if we continue to spend that money, we can't spend money on things like services for the most vulnerable people. We can't spend it on the parks. We can't spend it on anything. We are spending so much, a larger and larger percentage of our budget is being spent on benefits for retired city employees. And it's not sustainable, and the amount is growing.
Mm-hmm. So the solution is a reform.
Yes, and so it's a very controversial measure, and I recognize that. But I don't think we have any choice in this city but to reform our system. Mm-hmm. What it will do is it will make every city employee contribute between 9 and 10% of their salary to their pension. Now, right now it is city employees, they contribute less than that, and it's a variable amount. But then they can retire at age 55 or 60, and they get a set pension for life at 90% of their highest salary. And that can go on, obviously, for a very long time, and that can cost the taxpayers so much money that if we don't reform the system, mm-hmm. the city government won't be able to spend money on anything, on any services, except for paying for retirees. Mm-hmm. And that's not healthy. So it's unfortunate that it has got to this point. The contracts were signed back when the stock market was booming, was growing very quickly, and it was never thought that this would be a problem. Mm-hmm. But we're in a problem, and it's the kind of problem that if we ignore it, it won't go away. Mm-hmm. And if you look across the bay, Vallejo declared bankruptcy. The city of Vallejo has been in bankruptcy for, I think, 2 years now. And that's a very real risk if we don't confront the problem. I believe in Los Angeles, city government is only operating 4 days a week. We don't want that result in San Francisco. So we want to be ahead of the game on this issue.
Okay.